On today's podcast, we'll be talking reach, ride, and decide out of the gun as we introduce you to option office style. This is Mark Holcomb, joined by Kirk Brown with the Football Coaches Corner podcast. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk triple option with Oak Grove offensive coordinator Jed Rolfes. This will be our first session and what may take a few podcasts to get to this entire topic covered. But today, Coach Rolfes is going to talk base veer with a few tags and adjustments. A recording of our podcast will be available through the podcast vehicle of your choice, as well as our YouTube channel, which is Football Coaches Corner. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you like what you hear. Coach Rolfes, welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. Excited to be on with you two guys in particular. Obviously been coaching a long time. This is 18 years. Been a head coach for 11 and a coordinator or a position coach for the other part of that. And I've enjoyed it all. I've learned from a lot of people and just had different opportunities to really kind of dive into stuff offensively and, gotten to a point of kind of falling in love with what we do now. And it's been kind of a conglomeration of years of putting it together, I guess, as well as some more recent stuff and diving into stuff deep. And I think it's been really effective and it's really unique. And so I'm excited to share about it today.
Absolutely, right, Coach Brown, I think you have a couple questions to get Coach Rolfes going, maybe to get some information out to the listeners.
Yeah, we'll get the blood flowing. A couple things, just wanted to, talk to you about, Coach, and I know you're going to, talk about some of this as you, present your stuff. But when you think back to the first kind of system that you played in, first system you coached in, what did that look like and kind of how has that shaped you today?
Yeah, so surprisingly, I played in a split back veer under center 2x1 to the field system. We ran literally inside veer and we threw the ball, which are my two things I like to do. So that was what we ran in high school. I didn't realize I would be obviously doing what I'm doing now in respect to that. But our coach was pretty cutting edge at the time based on what we were doing. We threw it really, really well. And we really ran veer effectively. So I was always kind of enamored by that. And then getting into coaching, my first stint in coaching was in Ohio at West Jefferson High School. Mark's met the head coach there through Zoom and some different meetings. Great mentor. We were a multiple team, multiple spread team. We got under center a little bit too, eye stuff, but it was all power football. We kind of transitioned some zone stuff and just were pretty multiple. So that was kind of my starting point for learning. And I used that the most as I kind of put my initial offense together. Then I got into the air raid stuff. And that's kind of really what probably shaped me the most. And then the option stuff kind of developed as time went on. So I've kind of married it all together and just kind of come up with what we're doing now.
That's awesome. And it definitely seems fitting now you've gotten back into that stuff. This is really the first, I guess, year that you've really got the option stuff going like you have at Oak Grove. So why now? What kind of, drove you to that? Was it all player driven? Was it just, the scheme wise, that's what you felt like you could be successful with? So why now? Why this stuff?
Yeah, so being an air raid guy, I can remember a game we were 44 of 66 passing for about 580 yards, which is great. And that sounds awesome. We won by a bunch, scored a bunch of points, but defense has started to catch up. And then getting into like 2014 and 15, I was at Northwest Guilford and we were pretty much air raid. We were doing some sniffer stuff and some things a little different. But the second year we struggled at quarterback. And that was the first year I really felt when you're maybe not great up front or strong enough to play some of the higher caliber teams. I felt like we needed something else in the running game. So we went up and visited with a guy in Michigan. It was like a 12-hour clinic. I mean, it wasn't even a clinic, it was just us. And it was me and one of my assistants and this guy in a room for literally 12 straight hours. It was kind of the guy who's at Ferris State, Tony Anise. It was one of his disciples at Muskegon High School. And we spent hours with this guy and it really uncovered. So that year at Northwest, we ran a short pistol, kind of a hybrid spread, multiple offense, but it was based off of veer. But we still kept spread principles and what we were doing, throwing key screens and all this stuff, but we just built it off that. So that's really what got me on the option stuff. And then 2 years ago, and I did some of it at Page, and then Mark and I 2 years ago, we did that. We ran some zone triple stuff as a part of where our quarterback was and just trying to really get him comfortable. And we really took off with that after week 2 and we installed it. And then this year we just dove into it deeper and met with a bunch of people to try to really uncover, as well as going back to my time at Northwest to try to get some things that were really effective in that respect.
Yeah, and you mentioned, those guys that help influence you then. So who now do you watch? Do you kind of look at to steal? All good coaches steal. And so who are you kind of looking at now to kind of model your system after?
Yeah, I watch a lot of Liberty stuff. I mean, I would say they're probably the most watched team for me in terms of what I would try to parallel what we do. Ferris State University, where Tony Anise is, I watched them quite a bit. I've seen most of their Glacier Drive stuff. And then just a few random teams that I kind of come across. J.K. Adkins, who is at Mount Airy, is at Freedom now. We spent a lot of time with him. He's had a huge influence on what we do, especially in the running game. He would jokingly say he doesn't know how to throw the ball, so we didn't get a whole lot of pass stuff from him, but he really helped us with the run stuff and being able to kind of piece it all together. So I would say those are the main sources, and just trying to find stuff that make. There's so much stuff on YouTube from Coastal when Jamie Chadwell was there, and just looking at his stuff historically as well.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I know that, like Washington and Lee used to be, big triple teams, still are. Now they're down at Davidson doing a lot of good stuff. And that's good stuff. So when you look at, obviously had a great year this year. When you look at your strengths, what could you hang your hat on? Obviously, we're talking a lot of veer today. What could you hang your hat on? And then what's something that you're looking at next year to kind of work on, to maybe clean up, or maybe you've got to change some things, based on your personnel?
Yeah, the one thing that I really liked that we did, I would say we hung our hat on this, is even though it's not one isolated thing, is like we had answers, I felt like, for a majority of what people tried to do. And it was always built within what we were doing. So, we were a veer team primarily. That was, I think, 32% of our offense was some form of veer, whether it was a tag, but it based out of veer up front. But we were also running like counter GT with option stuff. We were running power read. So it was a lot of just option related things that really put a lot of pressure on the defense to have to defend the entire field. And we got into some other things with some of the triple RPO stuff and some play action. But I think moving into next year, number one, we want to be better at it than what we're doing. We're going to add inside zone as a part of it to give our backs a little bit more freedom. You'll see the way we teach veer, we kind of cut it off from middle to front side. And the inside zone stuff, which is what we did 2 years ago, will give the back a little bit more freedom. And going back, even looking at that tape, we had some runs that hit outside the opposite A gap where we don't give our backs the ability to do that right now with veer. And then we're gonna run pin pull. We didn't really run like the buck stuff at all. We had a kind of a complement scheme that was misdirection with some of it, but we're going to run it as a base, and we think that'll kind of amplify and move up our list. Our best play was veer, then we were belly, then we were counter, and then power, mainly power read kind of fit. And we feel like pin pull could be number 4 and kind of fit into that realm, with what we're trying to do right now.
Right. Well, that could probably give you an outside zone or a perimeter run answer, going forward.
For sure.
One of the things I was most impressed with is, and Coach Rolfes, you and I've talked a couple of times, is starting to figure out the if then. That you've really, I've always been a intrigued with wing T, where they say, just tell me who made the tackle. And watching you guys this past year on film, it was like, okay, well, this guy did this, so this is what we're going to right now. And I think that's a big part of knowing the system, is being able to do that.
Yeah, it's a modern spread world, but it's got old school disciplines in it, right? So they're expected to defend triple option, just like if we were under center, just like you talked about wing T. There's certain things you have to do defensively, and the offense's job is to get them displaced so that they can obviously execute their plays at a high level. So I think it's just old school principles built into like new age stuff, and so that's what I like about it the most is, and you'll see it on film. We affect people because it's so repetitive, and that's. We're playing when you play the double wing teams or the wing T teams that are good. I mean, they just run the same stuff over and over, and then they throw one play action pass a game and hit it for 60. So, I think that's the intrigue behind it, is just the repetitive nature of how we teach it and what we do.
Yeah, and you and I talked a lot, I guess, last all season about the play action stuff, and I think that's what you've done the best with, is making all that look the same. Where the veer stuff looks like, the drop back stuff and the play action, the power read aspect of it. And that's something that, I think is really good, and to try to make it all look the same. Well, I'll go ahead, Coach, and get your presentation shared. So we can get on that. And you can
move us through the first and get us to the first film. It's going to be 3 or 4 slides in, I think, or maybe 4.
All right. Can you guys see me? Can y'all got it?
Yep. New huddle. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Did you have to skip through some of the other slides?
No, sir. This was the first thing.
Okay. I'm not sure. Okay, it's all good. Okay.
All right.
Make sure this, because the date is not showing up, so I can't see what it was. All right. All right, so this is inside veer. Show it from the other angle. See if it'll give us. I think I shared with you the end zone copy. All right, good. All right, so 4 down front. So obviously for us, from a blocking standpoint, we're running this to the left, so we're going to get a double team, on any technique that's in that B gap or threatening 2, 3, whatever it is, and we're going to push that to linebacker level. If we get any threat underneath it from a blitzer, like kind of what they're presenting, then obviously they come off like anything else. The unique part of this is the center and the backside guard do what we call a scoop or a Scooby technique, and so the center is basically trying to bump whatever technique is hanging on the backside guard over to him while he stays square to cut the midline off so he can get the backside linebacker. That's what's different from like zone. And our center got really good at it. And early on, we had to coach him on not turning his shoulders and that sort of thing. Obviously, certain techniques, for the guard on that side are tricky because he has to take certain departures with his foot to make sure he can cover that guy. But it's almost like when he's a shade on the center, it's almost like you're running like outside zone. He's got to take a lateral step while the center tries to really push him over to him, and then he climbs and cuts the midline off. So let's take a look at it here. So our track is what makes it unique. If you watch the track, if you freeze it right there, the back is going to go right down the crack of the center. When you do that, obviously it kind of messes with run fits a little bit because they know we're an option team. So if they're squeeze scrape, they're displacing people. A lot of times we got some pretty cheap plays because we come right through a crease that developed or come out the back door, the front door here, like what you're going to see based on how people played it. So this is where he kind of bends it and he gets in the crease right off the down block, and we get a pretty big play from our tailback. You can go to the next one. There's quite a few on here. We'll get a couple different looks. So this, we're in a tight end right, twins left, 2-back set again, 4 down front. We get a really good push on the front side. So this one's different. The quarterback's going to get a pull key, obviously. But again, look at the track of the back. It draws the defenders down a little bit, and he was good. He's played quarterback for 4 years, but again, the track makes it really, really important. He gets a really long ride pulling that guy in late, and then really good pitch relationship by the second back. And this is just, obviously, I don't really coach this part. This kid's pretty good after he's got the ball in hand, so then he just makes a play. But you could see the pitch player was displaced a little bit based on what he saw.
All right, a couple years ago, we ran just regular inside zone, Zorro Zulu, and then we started running, I think we called it Zebra and Zelda.
Yep.
Would you say that the aiming point is more because we moved the aiming point inside a little bit to give the quarterback more of a definitive read? Would you say it's kind of like that?
Yeah, so what we did that year is we started off Zorro Zulu. He was aiming for the crack of the center, just like what we do. And then we bumped it to the inside leg of the guard to try to draw remember, we tried to draw the defensive end a little bit.
Yeah.
We just felt like for whatever reason, we weren't getting them in. But after we've coached it kind of going backwards to this, which is where we started, even though the front's a little different, this has been more effective because of how people play it. But I think part of that's because we run it a lot more too. And so their plan is really obvious early in the game. Usually by the first drive, I've got a pretty good feel for what they're going to do. So here's a good look at it from this angle. It's a great angle. So getting a double team, but you are getting a little bit of a scrape, from that guy, but the tackle sees it. We don't want him to chase because the double has to push, obviously, but that's an easy read for the quarterback. We do have some things we do, which I'll talk about, to complement our tackle to take care of anybody who does scrape over the top. But that'll come as we get through these. So that's a good look at a pull key, from our quarterback, but it's the same stuff. We diversify the formations. You can see if you go back to the start of this, we're in an open trips look to the right. We're bringing kind of a different look with motion. We've been in 2-back so far in the first 2 clips. He comes around, and you can kind of see they had a plan, right, for option. You can see it as soon as the ball gets kind of meshed. Based on they're trying to charge with the pitch player, but quarterback does a really, really good job. And this is what we want. We want the safety to have to come up and make the tackle. And that's usually going to be after a 5-yard gain. But if you got a kid like this, obviously one of your better athletes, he's going to make him miss like he does and get, 5 more. So,
and now,
this is a
Coach, I know that we always talk about retry, decide, and joke about that kind of stuff. Talk to me like I'm 5. So when you're talking about the quarterback, all right, he's pulled the football. Is he attacking a certain shoulder, a certain type of leverage on that quarterback player? Talk me through that.
Yeah, so it's real simple how we teach it in the backfield. Again, the track is right down the crack, and the quarterback steps downhill with him, and then gets his feet kind of on a parallel line. And then he is basically deciding, can the dive player tackle the running back? And if he can tackle him, he's going to pull the football. If it's an arm tackle, we tell him to give it because we're expecting the back to be able to break it. If he gets a pokey because he feels like he can tackle the back, like in this case, he is going to immediately locate the pitch player who's our outside backer, strong safety, and he's going to aim for his outside shoulder. And you'll see on some of these clips, that guy is taught different things. Sometimes he feathers between, and so then he has to manipulate. Anytime he feels like he's stuck and he can't make a decision, we tell him to put his foot in the ground, get vertical, and get +3.
Right.
And with him, it was usually +5 because he was fast and was able to kind of make some decisions. But this was really good. He had to flatten out a little bit to try to get that leverage because that guy was playing closer to the line of scrimmage for the pitch.
Right. Got you. And he deals it a little bit early right there, but that quarterback player has no leverage. So,
yep, for sure. So this is to a tight end, just to kind of give you an idea. Anytime we have a tight end, we have a few tag words we use, but if the tight end's, he's got a defensive end who is the dive key based on the call, he just best releases him. So nothing changes in the backfield. So he gets an inside release. So we've got obviously a 9 technique or somebody who ends up as a 9 technique. Here's a good look. Tight end gets inside. We end up with an extra hat, obviously at the point of attack, and it's an easy crease because he's getting upfield. So they don't have, a C-gap player that's able to kind of be there, and they end up stunting inside. So the track is really important. I think over time it just wears on people because a lot of times he'll end up coming out the front gate or he'll get lost right down the center line. So there's a lot of things that happen with the repetitive nature of it.
and
This is a
something
double
that I feel
tight
like
look.
is
Here's similar situation, tied into the left. We don't have the end zone of this one, but now he's got a technique. He has to arc release. So his base rule as the tight end, he's going to take scraping backer to safety all the time. So if that backer comes out of the box, so we can sometimes get 2 for 1 with the tackle, he's going to end up arcing for him and cutting him off if he scrapes out. We do have a call where we can align him anywhere. He does align to perform, but if we want to put him on, we make a crack call, and he knows he's got to take that guy no matter what. Now, obviously, if he leaves and goes away, he still goes to safety, but we didn't have to do that as much as what I thought because our base rule taught him to do that. And so with the double being pushed up there, sometimes him and the tackle would be on that guy. So we just best release him, and he's an arc player. So that helps us get the pitch on the edge and kind of messes with that defensive end a little bit.
Thing too is you're talking about, you said 32% of your offense. When you go to game plan, you just decide which formation you want to run.
That's right.
I mean, and it's going to be the same stuff for you, same rules, same stuff in the backfield. So those guys are just getting reps like crazy.
100%. Yeah, and the appearance of it is the same. We start adding the play action and the RPO triple stuff. It all looks the same to the defense too. So this team was a playoff team. They had a really good plan, I thought. They played their corners kind of hard. We're trying to get an extra guy to kind of where the pitch was going to be, and they gave us a little bit of trouble early. Play action was really big. Then we bumped the receiver out. This is a pretty good clip right here. I think we're in double tight, twins over. So we're running a little motion back away. So you can see the pitch player is up on the line of scrimmage, but you can see what they're trying to do with the corner. So we had to move the receiver out. He does a good enough job right here to at least get in the way with a cutoff block.
Yeah, dig him out.
One of our faster kids in the crease, but they were good in terms of what they were trying to do plan wise. We had to do some things a little bit different as the game progressed. But this is right by the quarterback. He gets obviously the dive key. You get an inside release. There you can see the tight end cutting off the inside linebacker, just like what we talked about. That's a 2 for 1 a lot of times. And so you can take people out of the equation that way.
Right. And I feel like, you can't see it as, this is the best look up, but I think something that might be not as, the most undercoached part of this, and you touched on a little bit earlier, is helping the running back stay square through the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we touched on a little bit with, with the footwork of him, is that he's able to hit that thing as vertically as possible to put as much stress. There's no horizontal movement on this type of run to, put that vertical stress. When you touched on kind of what these guys are doing with their corners, is there something, that, obviously you ain't got to tell us all your secrets, but what's giving you, I guess, the most issue, so to speak, or what, obviously better players. And I know, we get into that conversation, but schematically, if there's something that kind of, what?
Yeah, I would say this gave us the most trouble, to be honest with you, just because they brought the extra player. And I always viewed, I tried to view play action as like, more of an answer where we needed to run it early in this game because they were giving us the ability to get in that space behind it. And we started doing it probably too late. But I would say just, are they able, the one thing I look for is, are they trying to add an extra player to account for option anyway? And in this case, they are. Sometimes it's a safety coming down really, really hard. So that's where I think the play action stuff's really, really relevant. But honestly, like there were teams that loaded the box too, and like different for me from years past. Like we still ran a football. We just loaded the box. So we in our first game, I think they had 13 players in the box. I mean, you can only play with 11, but and we were still like gutting them just because we just made sure we had enough
Right.
where the point of attack was going to be. We threw it 4 times in that game, which is like for me was like remarkable. We were 3 for 4 for like 80 yards, you know, and but we ran for like
big plays.
700.
That's pretty efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I thought so. So, but yeah, I think the nature of how just adding an extra player is the big thing that I would look for if they're getting an extra hat to the point of attack or to the option phase.
Right. Well, and there's not a lot of teams that can jump into 12 personnel like this and live in it and feel comfortable with 2 tight ends on the field either at the high school level.
Sure.
So that's nice to have too.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a wing alignment. So again, his base rule is the same. He gets hung up a little bit on the dive key. He's on our right, but his job is to get over the top for the scraper. You can see he kind of bumps out a little bit. And so again, what started to happen, this is a pretty well-coached team. You can see the front side linebacker, he's taking himself out of the box. And so we're able to kind of sneak in there for a +5 gain. So that's where I think the advantages are in running a system like what we do, because it's like everybody else. It's spread football. But if you look at Liberty or look at what we're trying to do, we parallel a lot of what they do. Like that extra element, I kind of joked with Mark. I said, I really like a cup of like vanilla ice cream, but I really like a cup of vanilla ice cream when you go to those places where you can get like Oreo crumbles and fudge and
all the toppings,
different drizzles and all the whatever Reese cups. And that's what this does. Like you get all the extra stuff. And I think it forces people to like be wrong. So I mean, I think we all would prefer not to have to block people. And a lot of times we don't have to because they just move themselves. If you look at 44 right here, he's a non-factor in that play.
Right.
So that's a good look at the tight end. Here's a look. I think this is the one the tight end actually whiffs, and you'll see. I'm not one that shows all the good clips. So run that back. So watch the tight end. His job is he's an arc player for the scraper. He doesn't take him. Who makes the tackle?
Right.
And if he gets him covered, I'm going to tell you that quarterback can run, and that would have been a huge play. And I'm sure I'm somewhere on the sideline yelling at him or something.
But that's great teaching tape to show that guy, hey, this is the one block we got to have. And yeah,
because if you watch the pitch player, he's starting to fan out a little bit.
Right.
I know too, or whatever Connor's number was this year, he would put his foot in the ground, he would have rolled. So that,
and this is. And this is good discipline by the quarterback, because he could be in this situation and say, okay, I'm going to try to pitch it, or I'm going to try to make something happen that shouldn't happen, and that's, fall down, take this maybe loss of a yard, and we'll fight another day, get a new tight end in and get him coached and figure that out from there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Here's another look at something similar. So our technique again, he whiffs again, but there's the 2-for-1 I was talking about, right? You got the tackle and the tight end, even though neither of them really get it done. But like, that's the idea, because there's no way the tackle's going to make that block, if we get outside, right? And we're not asking him to. That's why we're trying to pin it. And so if he pins it, look at 24 as the pitch player, we're in really, really good shape off to the edge with, a quarterback who
you
can
got
run.
a huge gap there to run through if they get him.
100%. And so, that stuff, it's like any level of football. So we sub the tight end sometimes, and this kid came in and did some things, but this is the same rule. So he's going to arc out, and he's going to kind of work it from there. Go ahead and go forward. There's a few of our adjustments on here. Give me one more. Right here. All right. So one of the things we do, you can show it from the other angle, the back angle. So one of the things we do is we will show option appearance on non-option runs. Now, this is veer up front, but we tag a kick call. So that tells our H-back he is kicking out the dive key. So this is an automatic handoff, but everything else except the read, because that's taken out, looks like we're running veer. So they're going to get into their veer alignment. Our tight end 0 is kicking the first thing that shows out. You got a double right there. And this is a really good job by the tailback of kind of folding in and getting back vertical again, because the scraper kind of comes out of the box, and he's +3 to 4. And that's, to me, that's good football. I mean, we love, +3 to 4 yards and just being able to kind of chip at people. So that's one of our adjustments, is we make a kick call. So you're using your tight end sniffer in different ways. He could be in different alignments, obviously. And so they're, that defensive end's getting all kinds of different looks. Here's another one right here. This was a big, and this is the game I was talking about in the playoff. They had a really good plan for us. This was a really good play for us as the game went on. So you can see the tight end does a really good job of kind of coming downhill, and he doesn't hinge early. That's hard to coach. I had to spend a lot of time coaching them on that because otherwise they're going to get their faces crossed. Then obviously after that, that's just pure athleticism. That's not a whole lot of coaching there. But right here is a really good job by the tight end. It's just veer to the right. We're doing a good job. And so it looks like the double team got called to the right by the center and guard. They saw something, so we cut off the backside. So we do make some minor adjustment here. But you can see the crease that develops just from that. But go back one more time to the beginning. If you just watch like the back end of the defense, freeze it once the play kind of starts to develop. I'll kind of take man. Freeze it right there. Okay, so number 2 is already moving to the right. He's moving to the right because of option, right? He's displaced just enough to be out of position to make a tackle. If we were running inside zone or power kick out with no option look, you're not going to get that. And that's why, again, I think it's the toppings on the ice cream. It's just so different. You know, for me, I just felt like it displaced people more and less people to block. And so it gave our athletes more time and space and more inches in space, which is what football's all about.
Absolutely. Well, your middle backer too obviously takes a step the opposite way, and now your tackle is just sitting there waiting on him, like, come on back. Yeah. And that's something you'd like to see. It's like a punt return wall. Yeah.
100%. 100%. So that's our kick technique. You can go forward. I think I got one more adjustment on here.
I was going to say, if there's one more adjustment, Coach.
Right here. Here it is.
Okay. Awesome.
We got enough time for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we put an inline tight end. So you saw earlier we arc release them. We do different things with them. So this is, we make a down call. So this is essentially what some would call outside veer for us. We're going to bump it a man out. So we're actually reading the first man outside the tight end. He's going to block the typical dive key and inside veer, which this is probably the best clip we have of this. And he absolutely washes this thing out. Nothing changes in the backfield. It's all the same. The only difference is the tight end is down blocking the normal dive key, and the quarterback's reading one man out like on outside veer. We gave it 99% of the time. The only time we pulled it was in a scrimmage 2 times, and we never pulled it the rest of the year. And he was right. I mean, he was never wrong. It was just the nature of an outside linebacker, strong safety is not going to take dive. Right. So we felt like we could wash this thing out, which our tight end was a good blocker. He was a former offensive lineman. He was coached by Mark, so that's why he was good. And so I brought him to tight end, and he was great. I mean, he didn't have any catches all year, but he could absolutely down block, and you can see it right here.
So nothing changes there for the quarterback and the running back. It's the same path.
Yep, same path, right down the crack of the center. Early on, this kind of goes back to your question. The first couple weeks, they were having a hard time seeing how the play was going to kind of wash like it is right here. And I didn't want them to, we stress pressing the center's rear end with the back on all that stuff. I didn't want them to assume the cut, even though this is kind of how we want it to go if we get a good wash, because it does hit in the middle sometimes too, don't get me wrong. So I tried to be careful early on. So we actually use the zebra Zelda technique that we used, Mark, a couple years ago, where we bumped them a man out. And so I just moved the quarterback's footwork on a 45, so we tracked it to the inside leg of the guard to help them see it. But I think by game 2, which this is game 2, we were back to the normal, linear path right down the midline.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of a modification. I'm an EC teacher, so I modified that to make sure we were good to go.
Look at you. Accommodations. Well, Coach Holcomb, is there anything you kind of want to touch on? And obviously, like we touched on, this is part 1. We'll probably have part 2, part 3 be the trilogy of the gun, be like Star Wars before we get done with it. If there's anything
this might be like the never ending story part 3. Yeah.
So, is there a song that goes with that too?
Yeah, let's go. Yep. So Coach, I appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for listening to the Football Coaches Corner podcast today or watching on our YouTube channel. We invite you to visit our website, which is www.footballcoachescorner.com for some free downloads, and also email us with any questions. I'm sure Coach will be willing to talk to people or share people. I know he's on pretty active on Twitter right now. You can email us at fbcoachescorner@gmail.com or DM us on X at fbcoachescorner. Coach, you want to give your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I think it's my first and last name. I'm pretty creative. It's at Jared Rolfes, JAREDROLFES.
All right, good.
But to make sure you don't put Coach Rolfes, because that's my brother who lives in Ohio. It's Jared Rolfes.
All right. Yep. So he's a great follow, and he does a lot of stuff with this too. If you have any questions or thoughts about what's going on today, we'd love to discuss that with you. We want to include you and your thoughts in questions. Our goal is to make this podcast a place where football coaches can collaborate. So coaches, until next time, continue to coach with pride, passion, and a purpose.